The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. We are back. Lovin Baseball, when we were 12 and innocent. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and I particularly like this show because I get to introduce guests and get to know them a little bit outside of how I came to know them on Facebook. So my guest today is Dom Skala. I hope I'm pronouncing that right after all this time, Dom. Welcome to the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.
Yes, you are, Ralph, and thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to...
we were talking off the air a little bit. The guests that I particularly like are what I call baseball lifers. And a baseball lifer is most proud of that distinction. And you are certainly that. Dom, you grew up in Brooklyn, and you have St. John's history. You have a history with my good friend, the late Howie Gershberg of St. John's, who I'm gonna put in a plug for. That famous game between Darling and Franco. Howie Gershberg was the pitching coach of that.
Right.
Yale played.
It was Darling and Viola.
Oh, it was Viola, yes, it was. The sweet music of Viola. He was super. They both turned out to have great major league careers, and it was a very famous game. And I got to know Howie in my Tops duties later on in his life. He was a pitching guru with the California Angels system. And he went to, I got to know him in Salem, and I really enjoyed his company in California or on the West Coast. And I was saddened he passed away of cancer, must be 10 years ago. Yeah. And I was saddened to learn of that. And you also, Brooklyn roots, you knew Cy Berger well, and he was my boss at Tops for many years. And so we have that in common, and I would like to keep within the parameters of the show because there's method to my madness. In getting to know you, I want to get to your youth. And at age 12, a kid is both into baseball or not, but if you're into baseball, it's not just by age 12, you've developed an intellectualism about the game. So, and I want to know how, what you were like, what your baseball life was like as a kid, and how it surprised, once you got into it and the changes of baseball, what is it about baseball that most shocked you in the change of the game? So let's start with you at age 12 in Brooklyn. What was baseball?
Let me just say this, Ralph. Again, thanks for having me. You mentioned that I'm a lifer, and it's funny. I got a few awards this past year. 21 was a very good year for me. I was inducted in the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame, and I also was inducted into the Italian American Baseball Foundation Hall of Fame. And it was because not only the achievements that you accomplished through the years, but it was for being a lifer in baseball. Because you accumulate all this time, and it's funny, Ralph, if you don't mind me saying it, you don't realize it that you become a lifer until you get these types of awards, because there's so much that does come back to you, and there's so much that you've done through those years, going back to my childhood, which you just asked me about at 12 years old. I mean, I can remember going out to McCarran Park with my dad at 5 years old, waiting for him on my stoop in Brooklyn, waiting for him from his job on the docks in Brooklyn. He worked, he worked on the piers in Brooklyn. So he had a tough day working like 9 to 5 or 9 to 4:30. Then he came home and didn't have a problem taking me to the park and working out with me for an hour, hour and a half. That's a lot of sacrifice, And, Ralph, in our day, we didn't have all the things that they have today. Kids have so much today, and not just with, all the different things that are happening in the world and TV and you have your video games and you're this and you're that. We only had sports back then, whether it be baseball, basketball, football, you know what I mean? And we played it on the streets all day long.
And it was seasonal, absolutely seasonal, because
we didn't play baseball all year round. We played baseball in the summer. We played football in the fall, and then went into basketball, and then went into baseball in the spring again. But that was my life right there.
Okay, because it's so seasonal, to come out of New York like Frank Torre did, Billy Lowe's, Whitey Ford, you had to be an exceptional athlete. You had to, because like if you grew up in Florida, you'd play all year, and believe me, that makes a difference. And for you to have had a professional career coming out of Brooklyn, I really admire that. Back in the days of Lenny Wilkins and Tommy Davis and
Ralph, you know what it is? We developed a passion for the game. And I believe, I still do camps and clinics now for young kids. As a matter of fact, I start my camps next week, my summer camps, Dom Skala baseball camps here in New York. And I usually get somewhere between 300 and 400 kids a summer. And what I not only teach them is not only the game. I not only teach them the fundamentals of the game, but I want to teach them to enjoy the game, and that builds to love the game, and that gives them passion, and that's how you learn, Ralph. You have to love what you're doing, regardless of whatever your profession is. You have to love what you're doing, because then it becomes easy for you. It becomes natural to learn. It's not something that's hard. It becomes easy.
Right. It's the game that's the great equalizer. You could be 6'8" or 5'9" and succeed in the game. That's why, if you're a basketball player, you better be 6'5" or over, that kind of thing. Football, you better be very, very big. Baseball's the people's game.
Right.
Dominic, what are you disappointed in baseball over the years, how it's evolved?
Well, I'm not really too disappointed with it. The only thing I can tell you is that I get a little bit emotionally upset about is when these players, after they hit home runs, they stand at home plate, they pound their chest, they go around the bases very slowly, and, it's kind of like disrespecting the game. However, in today's game, Ralph, Major League Baseball wants them to do that. They want entertainment. That's like an entertainment object for them.
Right.
It's something that the kids are now emulating that stuff. I watch some games once in a while, and I see a guy hit a great shot, and he stands there and he watches it, or he hits a double, and he stands on second base and he looks into the dugout, and he, makes some sort of a signal to them.
Right. And an expression to God that he succeeded that time, the 1 in 3 times that he succeeded.
That's something that kind of bothers me. I've learned to live with it, even as a college coach. I was a college coach for 18 years, and probably the last 4 years that I was coaching, the kids started doing these things, and, they got excited. I kind of went with it, but I told them to do it in a class manner. Being an ex-Yankee, Ralph, I was taught class and dignity, and,
right.
If you're going to do something, do it with class and dignity. That's all I say. I do it to respect the game. Don't disrespect the game of baseball.
Dom, you mentioned the Yankees, and I grew up in New York in the 50s and 60s. I was a Giants fan, but a Yankee worshiper. And that you have a history with the Yankees, we could talk all day about that. How did that come to be originally?
Well, I was drafted by the Oakland A's. I played at St. John's University. I was drafted in the 6th round by the Oakland A's. I played 2.5 seasons with the A's, but I got hurt. And, it's a long story what happened. I was released by the A's because there was a trade, a 9-for-2 trade, which, when that happens, spots are lost. So
right.
I got released by the A's, came home. About 3 weeks later, I got called by the Yankees to go in, and they asked me if I wanted to be a bullpen catcher. I said, well, I'm only 23 years old. I still like to play. They said, well, we have no spots right now, but if you do this job, we can let you practice with the Yankees and you do your job, and then maybe next year we'll sign you. And that's what I did. The only problem
they kept their promise and signed you.
What's that?
And they kept their promise and signed you.
Right. They signed me, and then I went and I played in the minor leagues. But the problem was we won the World Championship the year before, which I got a ring and I got a nice share of the World Series money. And Billy Martin and I got along very well. And, of course, Billy was back and forth. But I decided there was too many catchers ahead of me in the Yankee system, and I decided to go back and go into my coaching career. And that's how I stayed with the Yankees for 9 years.
Wow. Who held you back and who greased the road for you as a Yankee in particular?
You mean held me back as far as why I decided?
Who liked you and who didn't like you?
No, it's not anything that nobody didn't like me. It was just that they had made some trades, the Yankees, the year in between that I was going into the minor leagues, and there was about 6 catchers. They had 3 already. They brought another 3 catchers in. So that brings you down in the totem pole. Now, not to say that I couldn't work my way up, but I think the problem was I got a taste of the big leagues for a whole year, the traveling, the fanfare, the people. Then we won the World Championship. I got a World Series ring. I was in a parade on Broadway, and then I got a nice share of the World Series money. And all of that kind of played into my decision to stay in the big leagues.
Right. Tell me about Billy Martin a little bit, something we may know, may not know.
Well, Billy and I were very close. I was with him like 5 different times, as you know. You know, I was a Yankee organizational person, yet, you know, I've always been a loyal guy. I'm still a loyal guy to this day, and I preach loyalty to this day, although it's very far and few between that you see that today. It's kind of like every man for himself, you know?
Right.
But I was very close to Billy. I was kind of like one of his soldiers. I used to watch out for him on the road. You know, I'm sure you heard the story, and it was in California. One of his stories that he had an altercation with a guy in Anaheim, where a guy offered him a drink, and you know, Billy said no, and the guy came over, and then there was like a little bit of an altercation, and I helped Billy in that situation. You know, where he wasn't in the wrong, he was absolutely right. But this guy was a little drunk, and I kind of held the guy away from him. And George, you know, praised me for it because it could have been another crazy situation with Billy fighting somebody.
Right. It could have been like a Copacabana redo.
It could have been another Ed Whitson story. It could have been, you know,
Marshmallow salesman.
Marshmallow salesman, right. And you know, I kind of diffused that situation by grabbing this guy and holding him away from Billy, you know? So,
you mentioned loyalty. Billy was loyal. If he liked you, he liked you. If he didn't like you, am I right?
Yeah, you know what? All you had to do for Billy, and it's kind of like the way I learned to be a manager or a head coach, whatever you want to call it. You got to be tough, and you have to play the game hard. You know what I'm saying? You got to play the game hard. If you hustle and played the game hard, Billy had no problem with you. That's why he was so he was so loyal to guys like Thurman Munson and Lou Piniella, Willie Randolph, Bucky Dent, Greg Nettles. Those guys played the game with the game on their sleeve.
Okay. Was Billy colorblind, if you will?
Oh, I don't. You know something? That's something that a lot of people think and say, but not true. Not true. All you had to do was play the game hard.
That's what I meant. Colorblind means that if you did play the game hard,
yes, colorblind. Right. Yeah, exactly. It didn't matter. Yes.
Okay. Okay. How did his upbringing affect the rest of his life?
Well, you know, Billy was a tough son of a bitch, you know, as you know, and that's the way he played the game, and that's what he expected of you. And, you know, listen, we all grew up tough in those days. Well, you must have grown up tough in Brooklyn here when you grew up.
Oh, I was in Queens. I was the toughest guy in my chess club.
That's great. Listen,
Newtown High School, by the way.
Newtown, right over here. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I miss the days when one could walk to the Louis Armstrong Museum through Corona and basically walk the 7 line. We could walk it from where I grew up.
Right.
What did you get from being a native New Yorker that you can't trade? You know what I mean? That sticks with you and that's part of your life.
Well, I think toughness, but most importantly, I always wanted to be fair. I always wanted to be fair with people. If you did the right thing, I give you a chance. I always try as a coach when I'm recruiting somebody. I always tell somebody, "Hey, listen. If you work hard and you improve and you play the game the right way, I'm going to give you every chance to play. I'm going to give you every chance to play. You're going to get an opportunity."
Give me some examples of overachievers that you've coached or managed or been a part of their life that you could just see that talent isn't everything. And who are some of those people that you helped develop?
Oh, there's so many people. As far as in college, every person that you recruit, you bring in, and you hope that they get better and better and better each year. That's what you try to do. You want to be a developer, and I was very, very proud of that. As far as in with the Yankees, there were guys like, a guy like Lou Piniella, who wasn't like a great base runner, but I'm not saying. Let me go back on that. He was a great base runner, but he wasn't very fast. So he learned to be a great base runner. You got guys like Bucky Dent, who knew that he was a great defensive player, but he had to get better with the stick. So he made adjustments and had some great series for the Yankees through the years. Helped them get to the World Series, and then got to the World Series and became an MVP. These are overachiever guys. Brian Doyle, who wasn't a great player, didn't have great tools or anything, but worked his butt off, and then came in after Willie Randolph went down with an injury, and came in and helped us win a World Series.
Hey, Willie Randolph, another Brooklyn guy, and Brian Doyle worked at what you work at, camps and what have you. He and his brothers for years had that kind of teaching mentality. I'm gonna throw you a curveball. What did you learn, not from your dad so much? I know what you learned from your dad. And how about your mom?
Well, my mom was always the one who was there to wash my uniforms, to mend my wounds, to cook my meals. You know what I mean? She was the rock of the family. You know what I mean? She was the one that you had, your dad is your dad, but, your mom is a special bond. You know what I mean? She's the one that consoles you. She's the one that you shared some secrets with that maybe you didn't want your father to know in those things. And they would do that. They would do that.
Yeah. And you basically had a happy childhood, didn't you?
Yeah, I had no problems. They tried to give me what they can. We grew up middle class, blue collar. My father's a blue collar worker. My mom stayed home. I didn't long for anything because we had sports back then. We didn't go on vacations. I played ball all summer. You know what I mean? Ralph, I don't remember going to the beach that often or going to barbecues like they do today or anything like that. I was playing in 3 different leagues and, like I said, on the streets of Brooklyn.
Dom, tell me about your first uniform when you got in a league, little league or whatever. Tell me about putting on your first uniform.
Well, the first uniform I ever put on, my father bought me a Yankee uniform when I was like 5 years old, and that was one of those old gray with Yankees across the chest, gray wool uniforms, Right. And then I went on to play in the Greenpoint Little League, which was one of the best little leagues in Brooklyn. The fields were immaculate. Okay, they were really kept nicely. And I remember my first uniform was actually a T-shirt because I was in the T-shirt league.
Okay. Tell me about Frank Torre and his brother, his little big brother.
Well, Joe Torre, I have the pleasure of knowing him now since being an ex-Yankee and he was with the Yankees for many years, a great manager with the Yankees, a Hall of Fame manager. I go to dinners sometimes. I go to golf outings and he's there, and I get to say hello to him, talk to him a little bit. But I'll give you a little anecdote from Joe Torre and myself. We both went to St. Francis Prep High School, and I broke his records when I was at St. Francis Prep High School.
Wow. Sammy Stiff went there about that. Am I right?
Yeah. Who's that?
Sam Stiff and his brother Tom went to
I think they were basketball. I think they were basketball players. A little bit before me.
And they went on to greatness. Unfortunately, Tom had tuberculosis and but Sam played with the Knicks too. He's given me many interviews, and I value his friendship. Typical Brooklyn guy, that typical New Yorker. You get what you ask for, and that's all you could expect of a human being.
Right, and I didn't know Frank that well. Frank was a little bit before Joe and me, but Joe's dad was a scout for the Baltimore Orioles, and he actually, I used to play in the parade grounds. Remember the old parade grounds? They're still there.
Yes.
And Frank and Joe's father put in a great report for me for the Baltimore Orioles when I was only about 16 years old.
Whoa, his name was Rocco, if I remember correctly.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What was your biggest thrill in life? Not just baseball, in life.
Well, I have a. First of all, my daughter being born was a big thrill for me. But now my grandson was born 2.5 years ago, and he's just the joy of my life. I love being with him, and it's. But my of course, my family life is very important to me, and like I said, my thank God for my wife, who I've been with for. It'll be 50 years next year that we started dating, and then we're 43 years married.
Oh wow!
Yeah. My wife was with me when I was playing at St. John's, so she knows baseball as good as I do. She is a great person as far as like when I'm coaching, like in college, she could tell with the personalities of people, of their character and everything, how they carry themselves on the field, how they look on the field, how they talk to people. She's spot on with that.
Old-fashioned scouting used to be like that. You get to know the person. Am I right?
That's a big thing. Let me tell you something, Ralph. That's a big thing with me when I was recruiting kids. Their personalities. Can they get along with the other guys on the team? Can they take constructive criticism? Or are they going to stick their head in the sand? All of that stuff is important.
Right. Hey, Dom, this is terrific. Maybe next time you could bring the wife on.
I'd love to. Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Lovin Baseball when we were 12 and innocent. My guest was Dom Skala, Yankee lifer. No higher compliment, I'm sure. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Adios and happy trails.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.